Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar here, the Insider Playbook on the Freedom to Read. It's strategies, stories, and solutions. And we have a great crew with us here. They're going to go ahead and introduce themselves. Let's start with Lainey.
Hi, I'm Lainey Haas. I live in Fort Worth, Texas. I have four children in Texas public schools, which is how I got kind of involved into the work I'm in, and a co-founder of Texas Freedom to Read Project.
Wonderful. Anne, you want to go next?
Sure. I'm Ann Russi. I'm also co-founder of Texas Freedom to Read Project. I live here in Katy, Texas, which is a large suburb outside of Houston. I have two children in Texas and our public schools here in my community. And yeah, similar story to Lainey. So we'll get more into that as we go. But glad to be here.
Taslin?
Hi, I'm Tasslyn Magnuson. I don't even know how to describe what I do except for count book bans for the nation. I'm a parent and a poet, and I live in Prescott, Wisconsin, which is just outside of the Minneapolis-St. Paul metropolitan area. And I work closely with all of these people, and I'm very happy to be here.
Stefana?
Hi, everyone. My name is Stefana Farrell. I am a parent of two in Orange County, Florida's public schools, and I am a co-leader of Florida Freedom to Read Project.
And Regan?
Hi, I'm Reagan Miller. I'm a parent of two students or two children here in Pinellas County Schools. I live on the west coast of Florida, and I am also a co-leader of Florida Freedom to Read Project.
Wonderful. I neglected to say that I am with Freedom to Read Project, and I too am a parent, and I have two children in Orange County, Florida schools, like Stefana. So we are going to get started here. I'm going to ask a few questions, and we'll get some input and share all kinds of insider information from all of our experiences here. Let's start with Taslin. When people hear about book bans, they often think of parents raising concerns. What's really driving this surge in censorship?
So we need to think about this in a couple different ways. There are parents who are concerned about what their kids read, and there's always been a process and a procedure for you to go into, talk to a teacher, talk to a principal, work with the librarian. And then there is a political movement that is really about a loud group of people who are weaponizing parents' concerns and feelings of, and worry about the world and turning that into attacks on public education. And it's primarily coming from legislation and political actors across the country. And we see it in every state, red states, blue states, purple places. It's just a matter of amplification and where you are on the process of it. So like in Florida, I tell everybody is like maybe 6 to 9 months ahead of the rest of the country. Texas is catching up, but where I live in Wisconsin, we have a Democratic governor, so some of the legislative work is vetoed that might censor books, but the same parents groups that are talking about parental rights, that actually means some parental rights, not all parental rights. They are active at work in school board races across the country. I mean, that's kind of like the really big, I could go on and on for a long time about what it looks like, but I think it's really important to understand how the average parent is being used and their real concerns about their kids are being used to attack public education that we all love. And I forgot to tell, I have two graduates of public education. You too can do it.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that with us. Reagan, what are the most effective strategies you've seen communities use to successfully fight back against censorship attempts?
Yeah, so I'll tell you a story about my own district, and the most effective, community, or the most effective strategy that was used there was really the students. And it was when it was actual students that, they had attacked a book that the students were reading, and I'll tell you, it was The Bluest Eye. And one parent put out a YouTube video that said that this book bothered them. Parents had already signed consent. The students had read it the year before. So all the students from that high school, students who had read the book the year before, because I believe it was assigned junior year, the juniors who were trying to read the book, and then the future students, it was an IB program as well, were all coming in and saying, "Hey, wait a second, you all didn't even do all of your research. We had parental consent. We've read this before. This is the impact that this book had on us. We think it's unfair to take it away from, the class behind us and, future classes. You all never took into consideration the fact that our teachers work with us and say, hey, there is a sensitive topic in this book. It's this page. Skip it." And it's one page, and the students were brilliant. They advocated for themselves. They walked out of class, they showed up at the school board meeting, and they made their voices heard. And when their authentic voices were heard, it worked. Everyone had to say, hey, this was a mistake, and the decision was reversed, and the book was put back on the shelf. And unfortunately, what we see is, random books are being targeted that a lot of students don't even know about, so that they don't have the ability to gather that much, community outpouring. So when it's authentic, when students recognize the book, it is a really, really, really good strategy.
That's wonderful, especially seeing students learn to advocate for themselves. That's a good life skill. Um, Lainey, how can everyday people such as parents, students, or library patrons make their voices heard without feeling overwhelmed?
So, great question. Something I always say is from the position of fighting against censorship, fighting against book banning, is to fight against it in the way that works for you, in the way that's comfortable, right? Every community has a number of different parents and individuals in it. Some of them are the loud public speakers who are willing to go out and just be the face and the voice of everything. But some communities have those who are behind the scenes, who are maybe running public information requests, or who are tracking closely what's happening. Some communities have those that are really good at different things. So I always recommend to parents who want to get involved, but who are too afraid to say, I don't want to go to a school board meeting and stand up there and just, I don't know any of these people. Well, you don't have to start that way. It might actually be building a relationship with the librarians in your school or your school district and find out what the story is, what's happening in your local school, maybe your local public library. It might just be quiet relationship building to find out, like I said, what's happening behind the scenes. And that is just as vital as those loud voices speaking out about what they're seeing. So find what it is that you're good at, find what it is that, that fulfills you, that you feel comfortable doing, and do that. Start there. And I assure anyone who wants to get involved, you will find more people and more to do along the way. And you'll probably learn new skills and become a lot braver as you go along.
You're absolutely right. Great advice there. What are some of the most common misconceptions about book challenges, and how do you address them?
Sure. So I think it's really important to understand that the people framing these efforts to ban books from our public schools are often doing so under this guise of parents' rights, when in reality, the majority of challenges that are filed against books in public schools are filed by people who may not even have children in the public schools in which they're filing the challenges. They might have affiliations and links to political groups or religious organizations that are kind of driving this push. And they say they're targeting like inappropriate materials or sexually explicit content or pornography. But in reality, the vast majority of books they're targeting, they are filing challenges that have more to do with the ideas, viewpoints, and perspectives that they believe are contained in the books. And sometimes they even ascribe like really absurd assumptions and accusations to books that the majority of Americans would find like completely innocent and like void of anything controversial. For example, a couple of years ago in my student's school district, one of our school board trustees claimed at the start of the school year, right, as they're awaiting the delivery of, I think it was like $96,000 worth of newly purchased library books to stock our school libraries and to stock some new schools with libraries that were opening for the very first time. She claimed that there was a pride section, an LGBT pride section in one of our elementary school libraries that she was deeply concerned about because of the message and the ideology that was allegedly promoting in our public schools. And the school district, to try to appease her, to try to assure her that there was nothing to be concerned about, sent all of those library books that had already been vetted by professional librarians to storage, where staff had to go through one by one and reconsider, review all of the materials to make sure there was nothing that violated our selection criteria or any laws. And when this trustee was pressed about what books she was referring to in the elementary school library, which, by the way, she doesn't have any children that attend our public schools. So where she got this information or how she came to this conclusion is still unknown. But when pressed about what books she was specifically concerned about, she listed this one, Itty Bitty Kitty Corn by Shannon Hale, which is a picture book for kindergartners, for early readers, about a little pink kitty cat that wants to become a unicorn. She claimed that the book contained pronoun terminology. So I went to Libby, the like public library app where you can borrow books for free from your public library. A small plug for public libraries there, and Libby. But I read the book immediately when once I heard that was the book she was concerned about. And the only use of like they, them pronouns in the book refer to multiple characters. So the gender of the characters, again, imaginary creatures like unicorns and pink kitty cats, right? Like the pronouns being used were consistent throughout the book for each character. And she acknowledged that perhaps she was wrong, that maybe that book wasn't promoting anything sexually explicit, but she said the title was sexually suggestive and continued to kind of double down on how inappropriate she thought it was. So, and since then, there were other challenges to this book in the city of Abilene. People threw a big temper tantrum over a statue that the Community Arts Commission wanted to add to a storybook garden to honor the Itty Bitty Kitty Corn story, claiming that that was like grooming children or something absurd. So I think people just need to think critically when they hear like these people are trying to protect the children. Like this is what a lot of times we're talking about, right? We're talking about books about pink kitty cats or farting snowmen that somebody in Plano, Texas believes are obscene or profane, when in fact they're not. So just think critically when we hear those things and dig in. You can look at the actual challenges people are filing, and often you will see that the content that they're concerned about have more to do with the ideas or identities or perspectives being represented by the stories, or people's kind of projection of their own ideas into what a story might mean, rather than the actual like content or anything like harmful that they might find in the book otherwise. So
Excellent example of some of the ridiculousness that you can face when you're fighting these battles against some other parents or community members that may not even have children in the system, that can be just silly. I love that example. That's a cute book too. Let's kind of go around here now and everybody take a turn. And if there's one piece of advice you'd like to leave our audience with for protecting the freedom to read, what would it be? What would you give, the advice that you would give? Let's start with Reagan.
Okay. So the advice that I usually give to everybody is don't be afraid to speak up. And speaking up doesn't mean you have to be at a school board meeting. You can be sitting by the pool talking, and you have no idea who you're talking to. Other parents, you don't know they don't know what your political beliefs are. They don't know. It is an authentic conversation about the books that are being removed. I have one child who is an avid reader. I mean, I cannot keep enough books in his hands, and his level is far above his grade level. And so I appreciate the fact that he has access in schools, to more challenging books, and he comes home and talks about it. I have an older one who's a little bit more of a reluctant reader. And, so I like that they have a variety of books that she can, she gets access to that will allow her to read. And they might not be the books that I would always choose, but if they engage her and allow her to become a better reader. And, I know we were speaking earlier about our kids get, in the future and going to school. These are the steps that you have to take to make your kids, aware of life, of going into adulthood. So I would say anytime you get the opportunity, speak. Talk about what your kids are reading in school. Talk about the impacts that the books are having, the classroom libraries. I know another thing that I tell people is my son, I can't, as I said, I can't keep enough books in his hands. And when you go to, they say it's real easy, go to Amazon, go to Barnes and Noble, right? I've been there with him, and when you're going through a section of books, you're picking them out, going, does this look good? Does this look good? Does this look good? There is nobody that knows my kid better than the media specialist or his teacher. And they know the books he likes, and they're able to say, here's the next one, here's the next one, or here's this author. He liked this book, so here, look at this bin over here. And it has really been such a gift to us, and it's been eye-opening to me to see, how involved they are and how much they can help you find those books. So speak up, tell your story. It doesn't have to be scary. It's as simple as making that connection, with your neighbor, with your teammates, whoever it is.
Well, actionable advice. Thank you. Stefana.
So, my piece of advice is to make sure that you're not falling for certain narratives that are out there. We've talked a lot about some of the misinformation that is out there. There is a way through the public records process, is what I personally started my journey in this doing, and you can request records. You can find out how your state laws are impacting your local districts. The reasoning behind some of the decisions that are being made. Like Ann said, what does the objection look like? What was said during the review committee, if one even happened? You can get all of this information through a public records, FOIA requests, public information requests. It goes by a lot of different names, but governments have to produce these documents, and it can really be helpful in making sure that you have the right information, your neighbors have the right information, that your policymakers have the right information. Down here in Florida, again, parental rights. That was the narrative that was used to pass these policies, to pass universal vouchers that are just killing our schools. And lo and behold, when you dig in, fewer than 100 public school parents in all of Florida since 21-22 have filed objections to books in our school libraries. When you look at how many parents have chosen to place restrictions on their kids, we see 95% of kids have unrestricted access by their parents to the school library because, like what Reagan said, most parents trust their librarians and know that if there is an issue or a concern, they can go to them and talk through what boundaries should look like for your specific child without impacting everybody else. So if you're a type of person, like Lainey said, that doesn't want to go ahead and speak publicly, you can use the public records process to get some information and then ask to meet one-on-one with your school board members or your legislators. Take that information to them and say, these are my concerns. It doesn't have to be in a public meeting, and having those one-on-one conversations really gives you the opportunity to have an engaging dialogue around what your concerns are, what the narratives are that are out there, and what is actually happening. So, there's a lot of information out there to get. There's good information and bad information, and public records will give you the immediate source documents, and nothing better than that.
Great tip. Absolutely. And one that you just got to dig in and do it. And it's worthwhile. Taslin.
So, okay, you're gonna feel alone, right? That's the way I felt. I was just one person on the internet. A couple of my friends who were authors were getting banned, and I started tracking it. But you're not alone, right? And this is a long haul. This is about sort of big issues that are happening across our country right now. So you're going to find people like every single person on this call is somebody who I know. I've met Stefana in real life. That's it. And Reagan. So like you're gonna meet people along the way that will be inspiring and funny and help you get through the day to day of like learning this complicated system of the public schools and education and libraries. So like you can learn a lot of skills, but as you're there, you are not alone. Every place where I find a book ban, like when I've done the record searches for Pen America, every place, all 10,000 and counting book bans across the country, there is a community that is working to fight for books for their kids, for public education. No matter where they are, they're working. Sometimes they're more successful, sometimes they're less successful, but they're there. And it's in those bonds and in those connections and in that, like learning about new authors, learning about new people in your community. That's where you're going to find some, I say joy. I know it's hard right now. Life is very challenging, but it is joyful. It is funny. There are people who teach you things, and that's where you have to take your like sustenance from, right? This is hard work defending public education, hard work, and defending teachers and librarians. And there's a lot of stuff happening. And so if you can keep your eye on two things, the educators, the readers, and the people around you that and build community together, that's what you need to keep focused on. Um, so I guess that would be my one piece of advice. Remember, you're not alone.
That's great. That's nice and optimistic, optimistic message. Try and, find your tribe within the community. That's wonderful. Anne, you want to go ahead?
Sure. As you say, Taslin's message is optimistic. I feel like I'm going to lead with something a little more cynical to say it's really important to know that no one's coming to save you from this. Like this, when this started happening in Texas, probably around 2021, and Lainey and our other co-founder, Frank, we find each other on Twitter, engaged in, like, as Frank says, the same Twitter battles with the people trying to ban books. Um, we're waiting. I was waiting for the ACLU of Texas to come in on their rainbow unicorn and save the day and like sue the pants off of all the book banners or just to make it stop. Waiting for the American Library Association to ride in on their mighty horse and like save us. That's not their job. They can't do that. There's so many fires burning everywhere throughout Texas and the country and probably whatever state you find yourself in. This work really does have to be done by us. And I think especially because the effort to ban and restrict and remove books from our public schools and our public libraries is being done under that umbrella or that guise of parents' rights. It really does fall on parents to join with our students and our librarians, our educators, other community members, authors that are continually doing this work too. So like Taslin said, find your people. Like you don't have to do it alone, but you do have to do it. You do have to do something. We need you to do something. We all cannot combat all of this. We can't come save you wherever you are. We can help you. We can hold your hand. You can use like the resources that are available to you under Freedom to Read Project and any of us, we're here to help and support you and cheer you on. But it is going to be up to you. So I guess that would be my advice is like, don't wait. If there's a little inkling in your heart or this is something you're passionate about, just move, like take action, do something, like throw perfectionism out the window. Like you're gonna make some mistakes along the way, or you might feel like something's a waste of time. We learn as we go. That's what we've all done and continue to do. We're here to help you in that, but do something. Take that first step and reach out for support as you need it.
We appreciate your honesty. We all need honesty. So that's wonderful. You're absolutely right. Try and do what you can and don't wait for your, white knight riding in on a horse. Lainey, you want to go ahead?
Yeah. So loved what everybody said, piggybacking onto that. I think that one thing I would remind everyone, tell everyone, is that this is not what a huge majority of what parents want. In fact, it is a teeny tiny minority of really loud screaming voices, and also a political movement that has a lot of money and power behind it that is driving that. And so they seem very loud, but I promise you, this is not what real parents are concerned about and what they want. Real parents, those of us who have children in school or who have been parents, we know there are real concerns we raise our children. And library books are not even on that list for 99.9% of us. And to like add on to that, I want to just say that, but that small, teeny minority, while the rest of us are sitting back, getting our kids to school and making their lunches and, juggling multiple jobs and keeping a house clean and, they are actively coming in while we're busy parenting and living life to take over our school boards and destroy our libraries. They truly are. And that's, I don't say they is like some giant nebulous. It's a very small group that are committed to this. And so because of that, it is really important for all of us to, and so that advice there is, hey, you need to find out what's going on in your community. You need to check out your public library. You need to check out your school district and find out. I remember when my children's school district in Texas got involved, unfortunately, with all of this. It's because they started challenging dozens and dozens of books in my children's school libraries, right? And interestingly enough, 41 books were challenged in 1 month by two parents. Never in the history of our school district had there been a book challenge, right? So, okay, already interesting, right? 41 all at once, clearly a coordinated political movement. And I remember I was called up on a book challenge committee it was the Diary of Anne Frank, the graphic novel adaptation. It had been challenged. I was called up on the committee. I got to serve on the committee to read the book to see if we could save it. And I remember we read the book, the whole committee, all of us, I think there were 8 of us in the room, unanimous parents, educators. I think there was a principal, a librarian, 2 teachers. I think there were 3 parents. We voted unanimously to put this book back on library shelves. And none of us could believe that we were facing this. And so here we are, perfect example, right? But unbeknownst to us, there was this political movement brewing. There was all this money funneling in to our school district. And they were going to run for school board a number of people who'd been paid, who had all this money to do it, and they were going to run on this fear-mongering technique of bad books in schools. Anyway, the Diary of Anne Frank, needless to say, was pulled back off the shelves when we got to the school board. And I remember still to this day, I tweeted about it and it got a lot of traction. And someone responded to me and said, why do you people in Texas keep electing people like this who do this kind of stuff? And I went back to him and he said I could see from his Twitter bio that he lived in Connecticut. And I said, hey, can I just ask you a question? Did you vote in your last school board election? Do you know who your public school board trustees are? And he was like, well, no, I didn't. And I don't have to worry about that because I live in Connecticut. And I said, okay, well, here we have it. This is exactly how it happened. Because these groups, they don't even represent whether you're conservative, whether you're not, whether you're in a blue state, whether you're a red state. This movement doesn't even represent either party, really, right? It's a small group of people with a very small, narrow ideology. And they're going to come in while no one's looking, and they're going to win because they scream and they yell. So, my advice, get involved. Find out who your elected officials are, talk to your librarians, go to your public libraries, go to your school libraries. What's going on? What's the vibe? And while you're there, look into your policies for collection development. Let's say your community doesn't have any challenges. You have been blessed beyond measure to have a safe, inclusive, amazing community that's not trying to do this. You can still protect the freedom to read by going in and looking at your libraries, whether it's public school, public library, look at your collection development policies. Make sure you have policies that are shored up and they are safe for in case this comes to you. And the biggest piece of advice we give to people at Texas Freedom to Read is your policy must require that when a book is challenged, it be thoughtfully evaluated in its entirety and as a whole. We cannot stress that enough. If books are required to be thoughtfully evaluated in their entirety, not out of context, not reduced to a rubric or a checklist, by a committee, by a group of people, regular people, truly 99 times out of 100, those books will stay on library shelves because people, really, Americans, parents, do not want to ban books. We don't want to clear off our library shelves. So remember that and be empowered by it. but also know that if we're not actively fighting for it, the very small minority is, I mean, tyranny of the minority, right? They're going to win because that squeaky wheel is getting the grease, and it often comes with a lot of fear and horrible accusations that terrify people from getting involved. So just do it. Look, get involved, find out what's going on, ask the right questions.
That's good to know what we're up against, the truth of what we're up against. Thank you so much. Just one more thing to mention before we end here. If you are looking for more resources, more strategies, Freedom to Read Project does have a workbook that just released, Turning the Page, an advocate's guide for the freedom to read. Taslin did the introduction for us, which is wonderful. So we have resources and just so much good information in there. It's on the website and it's totally free to download. Thank you all so much for joining us. Really appreciate all your wisdom and insights, and best of luck to everyone. Thank you.